because there was no running water in the building to start with. And the pipe is long gone, but it was only cold water in here. All the graffiti is original as well.
Oh, can you explain how this works?
Oh yeah, I can show you when we get around here. You see all the black writing? That's done with cigarette ash. And then the carvings on the wall with all the graffiti and the names and so on. That's, of course, that's original too. This kind of writing, that's all done with a spoon. That, of course, the back of the cell, that's the toilet. This is the last table from 1969. There's a disturbance out here with the inmates. The jailer could put several guys within this hallway too.
Okay.
So then they can, at least maybe lay down, but then have to fight it out within that small area. And originally, the building had only one way in, one way out per floor. This part isn't going anywhere. As you can see, it's the inside that would turn. And even though this is fake, you still get an idea what it would have been like with the bars all the way down except for the one opening. And those are all original to the building too. I was upstairs a couple of years ago looking for something and I came across this heavy box and all of those were in there. So I said, let's get those displayed.
Yeah, those are neat.
Yeah, of course we had some famous people here over the years, lots of inmates. Yeah, Babyface Nelson was here for a few days. Some of the Dillinger gang. You'll get to meet Jake upstairs and Richard Wilson upstairs as well. But you probably haven't heard of either one of those till today. So this one in Indiana is a two-story. This one does still turn. There's a one-story that's in Gallatin, and as you can see, here's the jail and then the house. And I understand the house is beautiful. But this has only, I think, 8 or 10 cells. So it's pretty small, but it's still be fun to see it. And of course, this is us. Another big change to the building was right here. This was installed in 1960. As you can see up here, that's a door. There would have been steps originally that came all the way down to about here. The fire marshal said you need a fire escape, so that's why this is in place. The steps that were here, some of them are used outside on the fire escape. So obviously this area, the commons area, bullpen, day room, it all means the same thing. It is smaller on this level and the third because if you did something worse, you're up here. And on this third floor, really bad. But the cells are still the same size. And again, you can see where they cut the openings. Whereas there would have been bars all the way down. All 3 floors would turn at the same time as well. So everybody went for a ride. And then Jake Bird. He's actually probably the most famous here, even though you may not have heard of him until today. Jake Bird did spend time here, and then he went on to federal prison in Fort Madison, Iowa. He spent 12 years there, and then he got out on good behavior, which is surprising because he was an axe murderer. Also a railroad guy, and that's how he got around. So he worked his way to Washington State by rail. And by the time they caught him, he had admitted to killing up to 43 people with an axe. He was hung in 1949, and we have a copy of his death certificate here. So at that point, they were hanging people. So Jake Bird is pretty famous in a sad way, and Jake is still with us, as you can see. Then on the flip side of Jake is this guy. This guy is Richard Wilson, and he loved it here. He spent 90-some visits here on purpose. He does have quite a claim to fame. He was Hobo King. Britt, Iowa, has a hobo festival yearly, and he was king. And I understand that's quite an honor. He would come here mostly for a bed and a meal, and then obviously he dressed kind of funny, and sometimes he was picked on. So he actually was brought here sometimes by the cops for his protection. But yeah, he was harmless. So. Of course, the tables are throughout the building because this is where the food was passed through. The trap door was installed at a jailer's request. Let's say he's up here and there's a disturbance down there. For him to get down there to break it up, he would have to lock all those doors down the steps, and it would be the same thing with all the locks. So it would take too long. This way he could lift up this trap door and get down quickly on a rope ladder. But he's also outnumbered big time. So what he would also do per floor is pick whoever was the biggest, the meanest, and the worst of the inmates and say, you're in charge. So it'd be a real power trip. The last 2 guys in Iowa that were hung legally were not hung here. But they did spend some time here. It's Charles and Charles. The last hanging legally was not here because this is county jail. This is Fort Madison, Iowa. It's clear across the state. Charles and Charles were hung in 1962. And our jailer at the time, Roy Weichel, had to go and witness those hangings. This is Bill Foster. He's one of our later jailers, a tall, skinny guy, and as you can see, he had no trouble turning the building. The crank is here. Every floor had a crank. We have one left. And the crank would fit on here, and the whole building would turn on chain. All 3 floors would turn at the same time. Now we're in the part of the building that didn't turn. So this is juvenile detention. Juvenile detention was for bad kids. This would be for kids that are orphans, and this would be kids whose parents are in jail. So they came for their safety. And we were prior to Child Protective Services, so we served as that as well. Again, all the graffiti is original, and even in this kids area with all of this smoke evidence. As you can see, we have Mike Nunez and we have Mitch. We assume they're brothers, but who knows? And then there's a calendar right here. Some nice artwork, the lady. And then this is another lady, although the face looks more like a man.
So back in the day, their parents were probably saying, "You better behave or I'm going to put you in that jail," right?
The kids did have both hot and cold water, whereas inside the cage, only cold. This room is pretty much original to 1960. It didn't always look like this. Originally, it looked like juvenile detention. You can tell from the door, you can tell from the ceiling, and you can tell in the bathroom too that this was cells. When this was cells, this is where they kept women. This room changed at the last jailer's request, because if you think about it, he's sleeping on the 4th floor and has to go down 4 flights of stairs to let somebody in at all hours. So that would get pretty old. So he said, can we move our sleeping quarters down closer to the door? And the quilt is also original to the building. It was gone for 66 years, and somebody that had it learned the jail was being restored and sent it back.
Okay.
So if you're on the 3rd floor as an inmate, you are really bad. So we have tools and stuff stored on each side. However, all the cells are still the same. It's quite stark. The windows on the 3rd floor are much smaller than on the 1st. So if you are in the 3rd floor within the cells, you are pretty much in the dark, because this door would most likely be closed most of the time. We have had a few, we've had 3 weddings here over the years. The first one wasn't really planned here. They were to get married in the park, which is directly across, but the rain continued, and so they ended up coming over here to get married. And then some of their family wanted to repeat that, so they had their wedding here. And it's been about 3 months. We had another wedding outside. So this is the latest in hospitals. There were many broken arms and wrists, and with the conditions in this building too, I'm sure there were people that were sick. So when people started breaking their arms and wrists, sometimes maybe their foot deliberately in order to get out, that's why they put a hospital in the building. And all of this equipment was already here in the building. However, this equipment would not have been in here with an inmate, but it was here and we said, let's use it, because it's a period. That's not an electric chair, that's dental. And this is optical equipment, this as well. One of the doctors that was on duty here actually went to Harvard. Rather plain, but compared to being in the cage, this is like being at the Hilton. A window is like gold. So this room was used for trustees, and a trustee is an inmate with better behavior, both hot and cold water. And trustees weren't in here, then this is where they kept women. However, a woman could be a trustee. And there would be room for more beds if needed. But again, lots of evidence of smoking. This area right here changes yearly. Last year we had fireman equipment here. This year it's dedicated to FBI, especially Wayne Mosier. Wayne Mosier was a local guy and he went to the FBI Academy. It's air conditioned up here. So we are standing on top of the cage. This is the top of the cage of the center. As you can see, 10 cells. They're all pie-shaped, all the same size. The I-beam holds the cage. And if you look down further, you'll see daylight coming through those little round holes. Those little round holes are the top of the toilet dome. So you get the picture. These 3 vents on the side originally were to open out into this main area. They were quickly covered up because of all the noise and also obviously the smells. And it's hard to say if that's a design flaw or whoever designed it didn't think somebody would be living up here. We'll probably never know. But there's actually 4 bedrooms up here. Bedroom, 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 bedroom. The bathroom was a bedroom originally. The windows are fabulous. And the reason throughout the building where you see where the toilet and the sink and so on are on platforms, because they had to accommodate the pipes. The cage itself, empty, weighs 45 tons. Then you add the weight of the people, and the building was so precise for many years that even a child could turn the crank and make the building turn. And that had to be one of the jailer's children. This is the latest in kitchens for 1885. The stove is original to the building. This cabinet was built by Mr. Gronaway, the one that matches one upstairs. Water came into the building in the 30s, so that's the sink. The items in the pantry are also original. We don't know if this is original in the fridge, but it's close enough. This light and the one in the office match. Originally, those were gas lights. So the wife was the cook for her own family, and she also had to cook for all of those inmates.